Help me welcome Dr. Corey McCray. Let's go to the fireside chat.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you all.
Okay. Yay.
All right.
This seems so familiar. We did
Oh,
this
yeah.
last. When you look back, how has your perspective on leadership shifted over the years, and what experiences have really shaped that shift for you?
Sure. So thank you for the question. And it has changed over time. You know, you think about leadership as you evolve, and you often think that people are just they're born leaders. You hear that all the time. You're a born leader. And I believe that. I believe that we all have the ability to lead. However, I think that leadership is largely a part of your life's experience. The things, Jesse Cole said it, right?
Right.
It is really about experiences that inform how to engage people. You know, as I was watching this, and he talked about individuals and their experience with you. I think that as a human being, you receive those experiences as well. And when you have the opportunity to lead individuals, you have to think about those experiences. What is that cliche? People don't care about what you say; they care about how you made them feel.
How much you care, yeah.
How much you care. Yeah, thank you. But it's really about your experiences when you lead, and thinking about people who are now in those seats and you're in a position of leading them. How do you make those people feel? Do they feel heard? And what have you learned from them? And so that informs your leadership. And when I sit every day as a president of a college, I think about our students, I think about our staff, I think about our faculty, and how they are a part of what is leadership. And how do they inform how I lead? Because everybody doesn't want to be led the same way. Every entity can't be led the same way. And so I have to understand who are my partners in leadership. And in this case of a college president, it's our students, it is our faculty, it is our staff. And the only way that I can feel as though I'm hitting the nail on the head is to engage with them and think about their experiences as individuals. So in order for me to be an effective leader, I have to make certain that it's comprehensive. I think about all the students that, I do a town hall twice a year with my students, with my faculty and my staff. And it's a conversation. I just did one yesterday where I asked them about their experience at the college. What are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? How can we improve? What is your individual experience as a student? And then that informs how we get to our objectives as a college. And so it is macro and micro, right? When you think about leading. And it's not something that if you don't wake up every day understanding that you're learning as a leader from the people that you're working with, you start to lose the essence of being a leader, because now you're just doing what you want to do. Right? You're just doing what you want to do every day, and there's no rhyme or reason. You've set this sometimes selfish objective, and you're just doing that, and you're leaving people behind. So leadership is really a team effort. You just happen to be the person who has the title, but you're not going to be impactful if you don't lead in a way that engages everyone. And so it took a while to learn that. I've sat in a number of leadership positions, but I've also been in a number of positions where my leadership wasn't at the top of the organization. It's been a part of the organization. And I understand from each perspective how they now come together. And I don't have it perfectly down, but every day I'm working towards it.
Yeah, I love that. I love what you said about it being micro and macro. And definitely, I think we've talked about it throughout the day about just listening, keeping our ears open to listen. And how to better serve. And so what you do, Dr. McCray is the president of Paul D. Camp Community College in Franklin.
Franklin, Suffolk, Isle of Wight.
Franklin,
Yes,
yeah,
yes, all
Suffolk,
the
Isle of
areas.
Wight.
Yeah,
It's a nice drive if you want to go to Franklin.
it is. It's calming.
So, and when you think about education, it is such a people-driven field. I mean, they're not in the workforce. They're working a little bit, but you are definitely in that position to influence and mold new minds. You're leading faculty, staff, students, all with different needs and expectations. How do you keep your perspective steady and help others do the same when challenges or even emotions rise?
Oh, yeah. Can I tell a story?
Sure, absolutely.
I had that happen this morning.
Okay.
So I'm going to tell a story without names and positions, but it does, I think, get to the essence of your question. So I have a person who has since, in the last week or two, left our organization.
Okay.
Choice, I mean, he retired. The person retired. I'm not even going to put gender there, right? The person retired. And then we have a process for which we have to go through to ensure this person takes all of their benefits and the like. And so things didn't go as smoothly as they should have. This person was upset. And at times, like many of us, we get upset about the things that impact us and we can be somewhat abrasive. The process was also not perfect. So this is now I'm dealing with people who these are not students, they are employees who hold positions, and everybody thought they did what they were supposed to have done. And when it lands on my desk, it's because it's gone everywhere else. Now I have to come up with some solution. I've got a person here who has some needs because they've retired and they expected certain things to happen. I've got a group over here that thought they did everything right, but we found the hole, we found the problem. But I know that this group of people over here that were a part of the process did everything with good faith. They just made a mistake. That doesn't fix the problem. This individual who has a certain need for benefits expects and deserves those benefits to be made whole. And so they're all in my office and everybody's yelling. So as the leader, so when you lose your temper, you've lost control. I have to be the calm in order to get this resolved. But everybody wants to be a winner. Both sides, I mean, they have legitimate concerns, but you've got to be able to, the example, getting to your point about how to keep people focused and lead in a way that keeps people grounded. I had to state the problem, talk through it, people see where they've gone awry, and then ensure both entities that nobody's in danger here. You're not going to lose your job. We're going to get you your benefits, but we've got to admit that mistakes were made. Right. And so we go through this process where ultimately we identified the challenges, and the question was one single question. How do we ensure that this person who's left the organization has all the benefits and protections that they should have had when they left the organization, no matter who was at fault? And it focused us back to where we are today and how do we solve it. And it's not about pointing fingers. When both sides saw that, the temperature came down, we focused on getting the problem solved, and we walked out of that meeting shaking hands, everybody. That, I think, requires a level of leadership that is objective driven, that can be the moderator, if you will, while recognizing challenges and then getting to how you solve the problem. It's a practice that you apply, I believe, as leaders everywhere. You have to be able to not assert authority, but help people understand that there's an objective that we all have to meet.
Right.
So I try to apply those kinds of common sense things when I deal with leadership, whether it's faculty, staff, or students. And I've got a million student stories. That was just one particular scenario that I dealt with just today. But we do that same thing. Students come in and they have certain things they want. I want to appeal on a grade, or I want to do the things. And by the time it gets to my desk, it's been through the process. And I've got to figure out a way to keep our students first
Right.
and make certain that we sustain our integrity as an institution.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like you were saying about even this morning's situation, it's an obstacle that probably stretched you as a leader.
Oh yeah.
And it also is one where you look at the obstacle, but you also have to look at what's the opportunity in the obstacle.
That's right.
So you have to changing that perspective, right?
Yeah.
Changing that perspective.
And if I could add one thing to that, the opportunity that I think what you always have to look for is a way to establish trust in those kinds of in those kinds of scenarios, because I needed to be trusted to be the person that was trying to help get to the solution and not to pick a side, right? And so establishing trust was important.
Very important, very foundational.
Yes.
So as you know, our theme this year is leading with a perspective advantage. And when you think about leadership from a broader lens, seeing beyond that moment when emotions are high, or whatever situation is there, or the role that you're in, or even the task at hand that you have to do, what does having a perspective advantage mean to you?
So I want to make certain I answer your question the way that. So what does a perspective advantage mean from my lens as the leader in this?
Yes, or just to you in general.
I think there has to be. So what I try to do is establish. I try to be goal oriented, right? And when I think about a perspective advantage, it is thinking about what is it, leading with the end in mind, right? What is our objective? What is it that we are, what is our desired outcome? And when I have scenarios where decisions have to be made, and it doesn't matter, it can be, every decision is important. I try to be focused on that end goal. Now, there are times where you have to take the scenic route. It's not always straightforward. But being focused on the end goal, and I'll tell you for us, and I'll talk about this, the college, but as a leader across, the spectrum, is we have three things at our college that is our focus. The first one is student success. The second one is workforce preparation. And the third is community engagement. So that's where my mind goes around the organization that I lead. But I have objectives with my family. I have objectives in my professional and personal life. So I still think about what is it that we're trying to accomplish here. And so when I'm leading from this organization, I think about those three things and try to focus on how do we get to those objectives. And it informs how you lead. It informs how you lead, and it also informs. It's important that in the case of the institution, that individuals who work there understand those three things. We all, no matter what your role is in the organization, have to understand those three objectives. And so when we sit down to have a conversation, whether we're planning annual goals or evaluations or purchases, if it's about how do we spend our resources, how do we market, how do we, all the things, it's back to those three goals. So perspective is always, how do we get there, which is our organization's direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think leadership, even though the objectives often change, you have to have them. And if they shift, then so be it. But you have to be able to understand the shift and be able to right the ship in order to get there.
And I think that just also speaks to being clear on the vision, right?
For sure.
To know where we're supposed to be going. And like you said, if you start to veer off, how to course correct. For the leaders in this room, so we have some who may be mid-career, maybe in the latter part of the career. What advice would you give to them for staying grounded and focused and aligned as they continue to grow in greater leadership responsibility.
Yeah. You said staying grounded. I think that is, when you lose that, when you take on a position of, grandiose, if you will, you've lost.
Just lost.
You've lost. I am a person who, like many people, suffer from imposter syndrome. I wake up every day. First, I'm thankful for the opportunities that have been made available to me, no matter, whether you believe in a higher being or not. I do, so I'm thankful. But, I know I see it as a privilege and not a right. And so understanding that, not just every day and when I wake up, but throughout my day, keeps you grounded, I believe. Understanding that, I get to go to work. I get to be in a position of leadership. I get to have a conversation where I can collaborate with my colleagues, and together we move towards our objectives and our goals. And quite frankly, it's one of those things that I realized didn't have to be my role. I don't have a right to be in a position of leadership or to lead an organization, but I have this blessing in doing so. And so find that thing, and again, no matter whether you have any, beliefs or whatever the case may be, but find that thing that reminds you that at the end of the day, you're a person like everyone else, and it informs how you treat people. It informs how you engage with people. And when you lose that, you've lost your grounding, and you're going to lose your people and everything. I truly believe that when you lose sight of that, you have lost.
Wow.
So that's, yeah.
Yeah, I think it goes back to just that perspective of we are serving. We're really in the business of servant leadership.
For sure.
We're not in the business of egos and making it about us. And so I love what you said about that.
Yeah.
Just staying grounded. I think, whether it's your spiritual beliefs, your anchor that is holding you there, helping you remember where you fall, you're not your own, right?
Yeah, for sure.
When you think about the work you've done and the work still ahead, what kind of legacy do you hope that your leadership leaves? And looking at that from the perspective of your students and your teams and even your community.
Yeah. When people start talking to me about legacy, it reminds me of how old I am. And that's always a hard one to swallow, right? It's like, wow, somebody said something about legacy to me when I always, So I appreciate that reminder. But I will tell you that if I had my desired outcome, it would be a legacy of someone who was able to have an impact on community, on people's lives in a way that is positive, that has collaborated in a way that is going to change the trajectory of people and communities and expand opportunities for those individuals and communities. That's what I try to do every day. That's largely, in large part, I'm very excited about those three goals in my institution of student success, workforce prep, and community engagement, because somehow they align with the work that I have a passion around. When you are able to find your passion and it manifests in the work that you do every day, I think your legacy writes itself. And so that has been for me, it's becoming a reality for me. When it's hard, you almost have to pinch yourself. I talked about imposter syndrome, and part of that imposter syndrome is pinching myself every day to think, how am I doing this work that I love so much? But it's a manifestation of passion that almost gives me a sense of guilt. Like, I wake up every day and I get to do this.
Wow.
And I would do it for free, right? But I get a paycheck for it. And so that passion and the manifestation of it is really what I hope will be what writes my story.
I love that. That's
Yeah.
perfectly said.
Yeah.
Perfectly said. Before we finish our time, I just wanted to open it up to the audience. Is there any questions maybe you have for Dr. McCray related to what we talked about, or maybe something else that maybe you've been thinking about as you've listened to this conversation? Yes.
Where I am a natural born leader. I'm looking to always grow in that area, but I know for certain that I'm not a manager. I'm not good with managing people. In your role, I make it an assumption that you have to balance the two. How do you balance that? Or would you say you're better at one or the other?
I try not to put walls up.